Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with entrepreneur and innovator Robby Herr. He is a distinguished entrepreneur and innovator deeply rooted in the beautiful city of Santa Barbara since 2009. As a visionary founder, he has been at the forefront of technology and product development with a particular focus on sustainable and humanitarian initiatives. His journey began with humble beginnings in the country outside of Montrose, a small town in southwest Colorado. He's got quite a story. Enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to meet you. Are you in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, I am. Santa Barbara, California. Where are you located?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. We're in Super Bowl land. Are you a 49ers fan?
Right on. No, I'm not a fan of either team necessarily, but I'm always a sports fan in general, so it's going to be a good game.
Okay. Yeah, I think it will.
Congratulations. I bet your city's on fire right now, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's weird. It's just like this morning. Everything, inflatables are out. Everybody's wearing red. It's happening. So it's good.
Awesome. Good times. Good times.
Yeah, it always feels good. So, well, man, it's great to meet you. Before we peel back the layers of your life and tech and being a visionary and an entrepreneur, I want to know, how did you survive the last 4 years? How did you get through COVID, and how did it change you?
Wow, yeah, great question. I also have a 4-year-old daughter that was born at the very beginning of the pandemic, and that's been quite an interesting parallel to this time. So let's see. I don't even know where to start exactly, but yeah, I've been in Santa Barbara for 15 years now, and when at the very beginning of the pandemic, I had a baby girl who was born at 28 weeks. So we were in the hospital from December to February, and February is really when the lockdown, went into effect. So we were kind of isolated. My partner and I were isolated with our daughter for 10 weeks leading up to the pandemic. And we had this beautiful baby girl that was luckily just small and just needed to grow. And so when we went home with her, a week later or so was when the lockdown started occurring. So we had this beautiful young baby that we got to spend all this precious time with, which was actually a beautiful blessing for us. So in that regard, it was really nice to have such quality time with our baby. But during that time, on the business front, it was it was scary, like for everyone else, right? It was uncertain and a lot of fear and a lot of confusion. But ultimately, I just rooted into my daughter and really becoming a first-time dad, and that's how I spent most of my pandemic is really becoming a parent and kind of navigating the different transitions. I had a couple different businesses going and reinventing my initial business during that time was part of that chapter. And I'm not exactly sure what else to say about it other than I think I felt the effects on my mental health just the same as everyone else. Like, it was extremely character building, as we'll say, to be positive about it all, right?
Yeah, for sure. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do for a living now, here in 2024. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at Career Day, and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I love you framing the question that way. I invent things. I mean, first and foremost, I am someone who has always followed through in creating a solution to a problem that I found by, inventing a product or a service to solve that problem. So when I first started out as a professional, I was trying to solve a problem that the majority of people felt, which was, our phones have become so essential to our lives in a number of different ways that when they don't have power, it's a real problem. So I focused in charging phones. and keeping our phones powered up to be able to stay connected and do whatever we need to do. So primarily, all the way up until this day, I work on keeping people powered up to go about their lives the best way they can.
So talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and how these seeds got into you. But before that, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
When I was in third grade, I probably wanted to be some sort of athlete or, just a happy person. I didn't have a whole lot of direction at that age. I just was being a kid and learning about how to navigate my feelings, I think, So I think at that age, I think it's best to just do what makes you happy. Try to be happy and don't have a hard direction necessarily of I need to be a certain type of professional, And I love John Lennon's quote. My daughter's name is Lennon for a reason. And, John Lennon's quote of when he was asked as a kid what he wanted to be when he grew up, he said happy. Yeah. And the teacher said that you don't understand the assignment. And John Lennon said, I don't think you understand life.
Yeah.
I love that quote.
That's well said. So what were the seeds that were put into you to invent and to get the technology and to be an entrepreneur? How did all this become you?
So I've just always been a creator. I've been creative, and I've never shied away from following my creativity. And I've also had for good and bad, I've always just been self-directed. So I've had a very hard time fitting into a role for someone else's vision or someone else's intention, right? So I've leaned on my ability to create and to inspire others to create, and that's been just who I am. My entire life, I've been that person. So I've just developed into this person that follows my intuition and my passion, and trying to create value in the world myself versus working for someone else doing that.
So who's been a hero for you, an inspiration in your life?
A hero. Had a lot of heroes that I've looked up to. I don't know if I actually would use the word hero, but inspiration. Right now, I really look up to Jose Andres of World Central Kitchen. He's a larger than life character who's doing a lot of good for people in times of crisis when they really need it the most. And that's where I'm focused at this stage in my life, is trying to help people in crisis, whether that be a natural disaster has upended their community or human conflict has created really difficult times. Those are the folks that I'm trying to focus on helping with the Empower Project. And so I'd say Jose Andres is probably the person I'm looking up to the most right now.
So if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Let's see. Jose would be a great person to kill the time with. He's to cook and eat with and help people with. I'd say I'd put him at the top of the list, but I wouldn't mind spending a couple hours around the campfire with Jeff Bezos either. I think he could do some good for the intentions that I have here. And there are so many wonderful people out there I'd like to put around a table, but those are the first two that come to mind.
So let me ask you this. Every day you wake up, there's motivations that get us to not only do the work that we want to do, but to help others and to evolve. What is that passion, that fire that gets you up and that gets you to do all of these things every day?
I'd say first and foremost, my daughter, right? I'm most inspired by this beautiful young child that I care for, and she really gives me the motivation and inspiration to work hard and to do things for the betterment of all people. So I'd start there. That's really my number one inspiration, motivation, honestly.
Sure. So what's been one of your best success stories as a professional? Something that always puts a smile on your face.
Well, there have been a few instances where our products have actually saved people's lives, and that's by far the most kind of accomplished I've felt is really when we've actually made a difference for some people when they needed it the most. And those are the stories that we have a really hard time actually capturing, but we're working on trying to capture and retell those stories, because it's amazing when you can actually, when your work actually does its job and someone feels the benefit of the hours that you put in. But in terms of like a financial success or professional success, other than that, I've had a few that really stood out to me, and I'd say one is that as an entrepreneur starting out that doesn't necessarily have the exact direction that one needs to really accomplish something, I really love this one story that I experienced where I got the opportunity to work with FEMA and the government back in 2017, and that kind of opened my eyes to working with federal agencies and departments of our government. And I didn't know anything about it aside from that it was a big business and big opportunity. And so I just flew to Washington D.C. and kind of cold networked in my way into working with federal government. And fast forward a year and a half later, and I'm supplying the Department of Homeland Security with battery packs and on-body power for whole agencies. So that was like a really cool accomplishment, from having zero experience and zero contacts to being the supplier for a major agency in Homeland Security. And that was a really cool accomplishment for my company, Fuelbox, and for me personally.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of you. You could give that young version a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life. What advice would you give your young self?
I'd say stay away from alcohol. I'd say root in health, really root down in health and mental health, invest in good therapy and in a good circle, and stay away from the party scene, because I lost a lot of years in productivity and value creation to numbing out and to trying to kind of escape the challenges of becoming an adult. But yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind, honestly. Because other than that, I started my first business at 20, so I was kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to jumping into the professional world. But so I'm proud of my 20-year-old self. But if I would tell myself anything, it'd be that, to really try to root in health, and I'd go a lot faster and farther than I am already.
So if of all of the things that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of?
I'm proud of the fact that I was able to invent a product, multiple products. I mean, I'm at like a dozen now, but all the way through getting patented, making the thing, raising the capital required to actually produce them, and then moving into mass production and shipping and distributing across the world. That's a very heavy lift. And I've been able to do that multiple times now, which is a very proud accomplishment in general. But I have to circle back to what I said earlier, that when I hear stories of our products actually saving someone's life, that's by far the most proud accomplishment I have, is providing that life-saving power to someone that needs it in the most critical time of their lives. So that's what I aim to do every day, honestly.
So you had mentioned that you were into sports. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one sporting event with your own eyes, where are you going?
Great question. One sporting event. I would say Michael Jordan's sixth championship, that Game 6, and it was in Utah against the Jazz. I think that would be it for me.
Yeah, that would be a great one. So,
courtside for that, please.
Right, for sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm somebody that refuses to give up, somebody that perseveres against all challenges that I have created and or have experienced. I'm someone that is an advocate for imagination, creativity, and following one's own vision in life. That's what I'd like to leave behind, if any impression, is inspiration for anyone that wants to follow their own heart and their own dream to do so.
So I got to tell you, I had an idea when the pandemic began for all of those that were getting ready to have a child, and I thought I remember when I had my son Miles, he's 19 now, but I remember at that time they always used to talk about if you infuse the womb with classical music and sounds and human voices, it will make the child smarter. So during that time of the pandemic, everybody was home. There were more sounds. There was probably more music. And I thought it would be good to sell a script to Steven Spielberg that would be all of these kids, we would call them the COVID kids, that were born right after that time. And they would be the ones that later on would become scientists and come up with the ultimate antidote to break the COVID strain so we don't have global pandemics anymore.
I love it.
So I just wanted to put that out there, something to think about, having a child in that time frame. It would be kind of cool if that did happen at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about you, reach out, anything related to you, how do they do that?
Well, we're on all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's at The Empower Project Global, and our website's theempowerproject.com. So yeah, that would be you can get a hold of us there, and we're grateful for this interview and this opportunity to talk about what we do. But yeah, that's how you get a hold of us.
Cool, Robby. This has been great, man. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Joe, you too. Thanks for the call. And I hope to talk to you again sometime in the future and see what's happened since now.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.